Good evening. It's 6:02, and I'd like to call the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board meeting to order. We will have the roll call, please.
Here.
Present?
Here. Present.
Thank you for being here tonight, in person as well as via the city's live streaming platforms. I would like to remind everyone that masks must be worn in City Hall and the City Commission chambers, regardless of vaccination status. Masks may be removed when addressing the City Commission or the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board, but should otherwise be worn to cover the mouth and nose. The disinfectant wipes located at the podium are available for use by those commenting in person. In addition, attendees should take note of the seat signs that are in place to create social distancing. Your cooperation and compliance with these rules are appreciated. Public comments will be accepted during the times as indicated on today's meeting agenda. Community members that wish to provide public comments over the phone can call 888-382-9556 during the citizen comments period. They will enter a queue and will be prompted to offer their comments in turn. Callers will be commenting to the board live and will no longer be able to leave a recorded message. Thank you.
Thank you. In your packets, you should have received a copy of the November 9th meeting minutes. Are there any additions or edits to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes have been adopted. PCR report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We provided you with the PCR report. One question that was brought to my attention that I'd just like to review with the committee is the definitions of how our office determine the findings, or the chief determines the findings. And I just want to go over a couple of definitions that is also located on Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety's webpage. So when the case comes in and after it's been thoroughly investigated by Internal Affairs, and then the chief makes his findings, happens to be a he, one finding can be sustained, and sustained means there was significant evidence to clearly prove the allegations. So if a person said that the officer or officers violated a policy, sustained means yes, the policy was violated or a policy was violated. The next one is not sustained. The investigations failed to prove or disprove misconduct or improper job performance. It can go either way. We don't know for sure it proved it or disproved it. So it's right there in the middle. That's the best way to describe it. The next finding that can be is unfounded. So unfounded basically means the investigation indicates the act or allegation did not occur or failed to prove of the involvement of department employee. If a citizen comes in and says that the officer, PSO, violated a policy and it did not occur at all, it would come back as unfounded. Next one is exonerated, means the acts or allegation did occur but were justified. The allegation of the complaint, the officer followed the policy and procedures. So I just want to make sure those are the different findings. And there are also located on our website. Having said that, we provided you with the PCRs. Are there any questions or any thoughts or any comments that I can address?
At the end of a year, calendar year, do you compile the demographic data and make that available to any group or to this group, or is that a possibility?
At the end of the year, we at Professional Standards we complete a year-end report of all of the complaints that we have received that year, correct? Yes.
So, for example, there would be a compiled report of all of the cases that have been reviewed that would indicate a summation of the zone, the racial demographic, and the male-female other information. For that year, you'd have that visual that you could look at and analyze.
Correct.
That's not in this current data. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Chief Green? Yes, please.
When you see it when it says with the chief for approval, approval is that Professional Standards have completed their investigation, and now it's before the chief for the chief to make them. It's not final. And then after that's final, when the chief makes his final recommendation on the complaint, then Professional Standards will notify the citizen of the findings.
So perhaps the word approval is a little misleading, because it almost sounds like the chief is approving whatever the recommendation was, as opposed to.
So approval basically means he has received the report, so not as far as approval recommendation, because the chief has the right not to agree with Professional Standards recommendations also.
Right.
How do you determine the amount of resources to dedicate to any particular case? Is that a one-person effort, or does it require more than one individual in Professional Standards to investigate a typical case? Or are there more complicated cases that require more resources? And if so, how do you determine that?
So I'm going to answer this question as a depends. And it depends in the sense of the investigation itself. Internal Affairs, we have resources. Not only do we have an inspector, we have, oftentimes we have other command officers that might be assigned to Professional Standards. We have resources throughout the department to assist us. So it depends. We can use our resources, Internal Affairs, or we can bring in other inside resources to assist us in the investigation, whether it's the captain of operations, or if it's dealing with Detective Bureau, the captain of Detective Bureau, whatever the case may be, we have quite a bit of resources to complete the investigation.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda, we have, if there are no other questions on the PCR report.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, but if a question is asked, could whoever is going to answer the question repeat the question just in case we haven't heard it? Because I couldn't hear your question.
Thank you. Good advice. Now on our agenda item, the activity tracker updates, please.
Thank you, Chair Payne and board members. I updated the activity tracker, and if we are to go down the list, we are where we are currently. I removed the completed items. There are several areas that we need to discuss and select subcommittees. I will be reaching out to board members this week to determine who will be on the subcommittees, so we can move forward and get some of these completed. Are there any questions on any of the items on the activity tracker as of now?
I'd just like to make a comment. You know, 2 months ago, we could not pull it up as far as the activity tracker and all of those. Now that's been corrected.
Okay,
So I appreciate that.
very good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Thank you.
And the activity tracker under community awareness and access, number 1, develop partnerships for satellite locations connecting resources. That subcommittee consisted of Mr. Gardner and myself.
Correct.
Assigned staff is now Ms. Ducey.
Correct.
I believe at one of the previous meetings, I indicated that the Kalamazoo Defender was available and ready to partner with us in developing community awareness and access. Their executive director indicated that he was willing to put our information in terms of the complaint process into the training process for all of the defenders. And then additionally, the executive director was willing to share that information with the wraparound services that are also located in the same office complex with the Kalamazoo Defender. So in effect, each attorney would be trained on the process, and that would become a part of the orientation session for clients that they come in contact with emphasis on the fact that the Kalamazoo Defender's Office is not out trying to generate complaints. Let me repeat that. The Defender's Office is not out trying to generate complaints. What they're attempting to do is to make sure that our reach is as broad as possible in the community to all segments of the community. And so I'm asking that the staff in the city manager's office follow up and make that contact with Attorney Josh Hilgert, who is the executive director of the Kalamazoo Defender program here in the community. I've had a number of conversations with Mr. Hilgert. He understands the need, and he has offered to explore how that organization can participate. But it's difficult for board members to take the time to make those kind of boots on the ground contacts in the community. So I would suggest that Mr. Gardner and myself on this particular committee provide the city with a list of organizations that we think may be receptive to disseminating that information. And we've done this before in terms of making suggestions on how to proceed. We have suggested Mount Zion Church, for example, be contacted. Northside Association for Development, be contacted. Griffin Place, perhaps, be contacted. Organizations like that have an interest in moving this type of agenda forward. So I share that in hopes of shedding some light on where that particular subcommittee is.
Thank you, Chair Payne. Any additional comments or questions? Thank you. I will speak to a question that I had posed to us today regarding the OIR report and the status of some of the recommendations. The recommendations are all listed on the website, and you should all have access to that. If you don't, I will be more than happy after this meeting to share this document that I'm speaking from. Recommendation number 2, it was assigned to the chief's office and the city manager's office. This recommendation is in progress, 60 days to assemble the committee, and the deliverable timeline is to be determined. You don't have this in front of you. I'm speaking to it, but I will get it in front of you. And as I said, this is also on our webpage. Recommendation 5, it was assigned to CMT Operations and Command Staff. This is in progress. Number 7, CMO and Chief's Office. The policy update has been completed. We are assembling the timeline to be determined. Recommendation 12 was assigned to the Chief's Office and City Manager's Office. The policy update is complete. The community engagement timeline is to be determined. Recommendation number 14 was assigned to the Operations Division. Policy 430 is being updated, and the training date is to be determined. Policy number 22, or recommendation number 22, I'm sorry, City Manager's Office and the Chief's Office. This recommendation is in progress, and we are trying to determine the timeline to present to you. And the number 33, recommendation 33, was assigned to the City Manager's Office and the Chief's Office. This is in progress, and again, we are determining the timeline to be shared with you. I will share this document with you, and again, it's on our webpage, and then we can have further discussion at that point. Thank you for posing the question that I received today.
As a follow-up to that question, as we work through these recommendations, as a follow-up to that question, as we work through these recommendations, are we doing any intentional data collection? By that I mean, are we looking at a pre-test or pre-data collection and a post-test and post-data collection in order to see if we in fact can statistically and with data say to the public that we achieved the goal? Or is that built into the process? Or is the process simply determinative of conversations and efforts that we're putting forth, but without any data to substantiate it or say to the public, we have looked at this and here are the outcomes, here's who is accountable for that outcome, and here's how we're going to proceed to take a second look at that or whatever we need to do. Is that built into the process?
Thank you, Chair Payne. Yes, it is. When I share this sheet with you, it'll show the recommendation, the assignment, the deliverable, decision, and recommendations, and then the outcome.
And that will have data to support it.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question. In general, you know, the timeline on all of these is to be determined. Do you think that we will get through most of these before the end of the year?
I will also defer to Assistant Chief Green. He has been working closely with me on this. It is my safe assumption that yes, we will work through these within 2022. Chief Green, if you have anything else to add, I ask that you do.
No, I feel confident we'll complete it in 2022.
I note that, I believe it was in our previous minutes, that there will be a repeat of the 2013 traffic stop study, and that it would not involve Mr. Lambert's firm. It will involve, I would assume, some other consultants. And so my question is, we are 8 years on from receiving the Lambert report in 2013. And my question is, did we, during that period of time, collect any data or have in place any methodology that would tell us whether or not we were moving towards the recommendations given to the city in the original Lambert study? And I understand that this may be a difficult question, because during the interim, we've gone through a new chief, we've gone through a couple of years of COVID, and we're still involved in that. And so I asked the question because I'm curious as to whether or not during that 8-year period there was any progress made towards reaching those goals established by the Lambert study, and is there data to support that?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we've been gathering information from the 2013 traffic stop study. As you mentioned earlier, there have been a couple administrations since then, since the study, and we've been gathering what new policies, new procedures, new trainings, new data that was from the recommendations from the 2013 study. The other thing that we are looking at now as we go into 2022 is, and we're at the very beginning stages of looking at a study to occur, a new traffic study, and implementing a new look of how we do it. We at the Public Safety Department are at the very beginning stages of it. We will definitely keep this committee involved and educated as we move forward. And we have not even had official meeting as far as who we're going to decide to do the study, but we're looking at different options now. So to answer your questions, yes, we should be able to report back on all the different things that we've done since 2013 to now. Then also start looking forward and ahead in 2022 of the new traffic study and when that timeline may occur.
Thank you. I think for the purposes of the board, it would be very, very helpful if we could look at data that would indicate what changes that we have made and the progress that we have made. We know that there's been a lot of training efforts put into KDPS. Wonderful stuff, as a matter of fact. But what has been the impact of that training? And how does that training speak to the goals and objectives that were established in 2013 by the Lambert study, as opposed to, we have ongoing training programs all the time, but the impact of those programs is really what's important in our communities, not only here but across the country. And so if you could just provide some of that information to the board, that would give us a sense of any kind of policy recommendations we could make to the city manager's office.
Yes, we'll do. Thank you, sir.
Chairman, you're a very soft-spoken man. I can't always hear what you're saying, even with the speakers and everything, okay? I apologize, but I'm not always getting what, I'm missing some words.
Yeah. Is this better? Yes, sir. But is this acceptable? Okay.
Yes, sir, as long as you're speaking into the microphone. That's very helpful. Yes, sir.
Okay, I apologize. I'm not accustomed to speaking with this mask on. Okay. Any other comments on our activity tracker? Ms. Dusick, board?
I would like to just support you on that 2013 traffic study, because I think we've been asking for that, I know ever since I've been on the board. So, all of the data since, the last eight years, I know there's been quite a few changes since that study came out, but we still don't have the data. And I really, really appreciate that information, at least before I get off the board anyway. Thank you.
And thank you, Chief Green, for understanding the need for us to have that information so that we can zero in on effective policy recommendations for the community. So appreciate that very much. Prior to us going into board member comments, I'm sure that we're all aware of the no-knock issues across the country when it comes to policing, especially no-knock entry that involves the use of force, that oftentimes involves the loss of life. And that's not just citizens' loss of life. We lose officers as well when there are no-knock warrants executed. And this has been in the news locally and nationally. And I'm asking at this point in time for Chief Green to comment on KDPS's no-knock policy.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the things I wanted to address here in our policy for the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety deals with our policy 607 dealing with warrant service, and specifically knock and announce. And I will read that general rule: Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety will conduct a knock and announce during the service of a search warrant. Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety officers will not serve or participate in the service of a no-knock warrant unless, there's two exceptions to it. Again, I repeat it: Kalamazoo Public Safety officers will not serve or participate in the service of a no-knock warrant unless of two circumstances. One, we say exigent life circumstances. So if we're dealing with a hostage situation, then we will have that option according to the policy to do a no-knock search warrant, a no-knock warrant. The other one is when we say when the person within or already knows our presence, the officer's presence or purpose of conducting a knock and announce. So for example, if we have a warrant and as we approach him, the person sees us, they're on their, if we use a house, for example, on their front porch, and they run back in for the safety of the community and safety of who might be inside, we will have the option of doing a no-knock. But other than that, public safety does not participate in a no-knock warrant, and it's part of our policies. If a third department asks us to participate, we at Public Safety have a check and balance system to thoroughly go over it to make sure that it meets all the requirements of safety and identifying the people, the team members who are part of it, and also that other agency involved. So we have a check and balance system. But what's going on nationwide, I just want to make it clear from public safety that we have a standing policy dealing with the no-knock warrant.
Thank you, Chief Green. And I can say that, and I hope I can say this on behalf of the board, that your policy has been well thought out, forward-looking, and speaks to the need for our policies regarding this particular issue to look at safety for our citizens and safety for our police officers as well. And it also eliminates some of the concern about these no-knock warrants only being executed in certain neighborhoods and of impacting specific groups of individuals. And so the policy that we have in Kalamazoo speaks to that issue as well. And I want to say personally, and I hope I can speak for the board, that that particular decision was so important in our community, as the evidence is proving it problematic across the country, and that KDPS, under current leadership, has responded, in my view, appropriately. So thank you. Appreciate it. Any board comments on no-knock warrants?
I paused in here because I was not directly involved. I don't remember if we had a warrant for that one or not, but I do know it became a critical situation for the community safety and officer safety as we start receiving fire from inside the house. So that changes the whole conversation. How do we render the situation safe?
Any other comments on our no-knock warrant policy? Hearing none, let's move into agenda item number 6, board member comments. Are there any board members who would like to comment on anything?
About some children, some teenage young men that went out and shoveled snow for the seniors last week. They really went out and did a good job on the north and the east side of our city, shoveling snow. It was a basketball league that went out and did that, and that was outstanding. Them young men to go out and do that. I think ages like from maybe 10 to 15. It was really nice. That was in our city.
Yeah, I agree. Coach Detavia Moore
I didn't know the name.
was the one that took several
Okay.
young men about the city to shovel snow for some of the elders in their neighborhood. So very commendable, I think.
Yes.
Plus, he's a Kalamazoo Central grad.
Well, without a doubt.
Go Giants. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move into citizens' comments with a limit of 3 minutes. Any citizen comments?
No, there are none.
Yeah, I'm being told that we don't have any citizens' comments. And so either in person or call in. And so we will make everyone aware that our upcoming meetings are March 8th and April 12th. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
thank you. It's been moved that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Seconded.
It's been seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, the motion passes. And it was so wonderful to get to see all of you folks again, and to see that you're staying healthy, you're staying strong, and you're staying involved and doing everything that you can to help our community with these important issues. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so great to see you. We're adjourned.
Thank you.